see that we are live and we'll be starting exactly 10 minutes from now. So someone can just help us to share on our community platforms. We could share on our WhatsApp status that we are live and we are starting. Today is a very special day. We'll be talking about managing application access using Microsoft Entra ID. So it's actually a very important topic. And we have our cyber preacher here, Stephen Osonuga. So let's just give some time. So if you are with us on the call, kindly drop your name and where you are joining from. So let's just go from there. So your name and where you are joining from, please, on the chat. Yeah, thank you, Oluwabemiga. Thank you for joining us from Abuja. We are pleased to have you here. And we have Jolas from Akure. That's a nice one. Thank you for joining us. And we have Itoru from Uyu. Wow, Itoru, you are our regular attendee. Thank you very much for always joining us in our section. And we have Theodora joining from Port Harcourt. Welcome. Welcome home. Welcome home. So please, I'm not seeing the post on our community group. Please, someone should help us post that will soon be live. Let's share the love. Let's spread. The Nigerian security user group is having a section today. There are a lot of people that need to join this section, and if we don't share it on our social media, they won't know that something like this is happening. Welcome, Amarachi. Thank you for joining us today. Thank you. Thank you, Goma. So we have Adekanye joining us from Ijebu Odi. Wow, that's a very strong place. Thank you for joining us today. Thank you. And Okoyemi also just joined. Thank you, Okoyemi, for joining us today. So let's share on our WhatsApp status. Let's share on the Nigerian M365 community. Let's share on the security group. Let's share on other platforms, even on church platforms, social media. Let's share so people will join us today. So some of us that are just joining, your name and where you are joining us from. That's short. Before we start, we are giving extra 7 minutes. So at least those that are not here, they can actually join us. So let's just give them some time to join. So we started in the first week with understanding Microsoft Entra ID, where we explained what is Microsoft Entra ID, use cases, how to manage users, and how to manage external users. And the next week, I think the next section was by Steve, and Steve was able to break down everything we need to know about authentication. And he taught us how to do a lot of ways, to do single authentication, whereby you can use your Microsoft account to sign into any portal. So, and again, we also had another section the last time where we talked about where we invited the speaker and Mr. and Emmanuel Itoje moderated that section. And today we are talking about application access in Entra ID. So it's a topic I love so much, and I really know that I'm going to learn a lot. And I know that all of us here, we are still going to learn a lot in this section. So let's share. Let's share. Yeah, I'm yet to see any post on our community group. Please, someone should help us take a screenshot and share in our community group. Yeah, I can see one. Ituru, thank you very much. That's a good one. I really appreciate you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you for sharing. Thank you. Okay, let me just reshare in our community group. Thank you, Cyber Preacher. Thank you. You share. Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you. So Okoyemi is joining us from Lagos and is joining for the first time. Okoyemi, if you are not in our group chat, kindly just indicate on the chat. So I will drop the group invite so you could join our group. Thank you for joining us today. And I'm sure after joining this section, the next section you will join because you will learn a lot and you will know that this section is really valued and you will gain insight in the security space. So thank you. I can see that the crowd is increasing. Crowd is increasing. So those of us just joining, like Oluchi, Oko, Sikiru, Adebayo, you can just tell us your name and where you are joining us from on the chat. And if possible, you can just tell us your expectations, what you want to expect from this class, so that at least we'll coin our mind to that area and we'll meet up with your expectations. So we have 4 minutes to go. 4 minutes to go. 4 minutes to go. Just 4 minutes to go to our special day. Yeah. 4 minutes to go. Welcome, Ibukun. Welcome, Ephraim. Thank you for joining us today. We appreciate you. We appreciate you for joining us today. Thank you. Eyo Ephraim, thank you very much. Michael Onwumere, thank you. Usayo Oluyi, thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. So we just have just 3 minutes more. Just 3 minutes more. 3 minutes to go. 3 minutes to go. 3 minutes to go. 3 minutes to go. Three minutes to go. Yeah, I think Oluchi is attending from Lagos. Wow, that's a nice one. That's a nice one. Very cool one. Yeah. Once again, thank you all for joining us today. Wow, Oluchi wants to have a better and her expectation is to get better understanding. I'm sure you'll get it because we have a cyber preacher here, a preacher of cyber security. So you're at the right place. Your understanding will be enlightened. You're going to get more insight about security. So you're at the right place. You're at the right bus stop. So our cyber preacher is going to preach it to you and get your understanding. Well done. So other people, you can drop your expectations and where you are joining us from. So at least we'll have an insight of the locations that those people that are joining us are joining from. Some of us are even outside the country. Some are in US, some are in Malta, and also join. You could also drop your location. So just 2 minutes to go. 2 minutes to go. 2 minutes to go. Yeah, Steven joining from Lagos. Hope to get more insight to application access using Entra ID. Sure, you get that insight today. You understand it and you will learn a lot from the insight. So before we start, I would like to let us know that if we have any question, let us drop it on this chat. Let's not interrupt our speaker. Let's not interrupt him. Let's drop our question on the chat. When he's done with his presentation, there will be time for question and answer. Then he's going to take his time to explain any question that you are dropping for faster understanding. So at least it's going to flow and won't interrupt him. Please, you can just be dropping your question in the chat. And if you are joining, the meeting is an open meeting. We didn't mute the microphone of everybody. So we made the mic open. But if you want to talk, raise your hands up before you talk to avoid interruption in any way. So raise your hands up. Once we see your hands is up, we are going to call on you to speak. Ibukun, welcome. Thank you, Chisom David. Thank you for joining us today. Ariel, thank you. Thank you for joining us today. 1 minute to go. Just have 1 minute to go here. Yeah, we are live. So I want to welcome us to the Cloud Security Virtual Training Series. We are having our bi-weekly Cloud Security Virtual Training today. And we have an awesome speaker in the person of Steve Osonuga that is going to be taking us through managing application access using Microsoft Entra ID. And I'll be the one moderating the section. My name is Oyimafu Emmanuel, and I'll be on the backstage. So I will be handing over to our special speaker in the person of Steve Osonuga. So he can just take up the section from here. Thank you very much, Steve. And thank you everyone for joining once again. You have the floor.
Thank you so much, Mr. Emmanuel. Thank you. I really appreciate this. I want to appreciate the Nigeria Microsoft Security User Group for giving me this opportunity to speak and present on the topic managing application access using Microsoft Entra ID. Please, can you guys hear me? Is my voice loud enough?
Yes,
Please,
it's better. I can hear you.
All right. Thank you so much. So as we know, my name is Stephen Osonuga. I'm the lead blue team for SciSec Technology. And so today we'll be getting more insight on managing application access using Microsoft Entra ID. And I'm sure we'll have a big expectation to learn and to get more understanding from this topic. We'll be looking at managing access to enterprise application in Entra ID. We'll also be looking at managing app registration in Entra ID, then configure app registration permission scope, then how to manage app registration permission consent. Then we'll also understand and manage the use of service principal, and also manage identity for Azure resource. I remember the first time that I encountered this managing of application access. It took me a while to actually like really understand the whole application scenarios, how to actually use application, how to understand service principle, the use of OAuth, OpenID, and other terminologies. But over time, I've been able to get used to it, and so we'll be diving through this content for today. Okay, so first, we'll be looking at managing access to enterprise application. Now, enterprise application is okay. Sorry, let me share my screen. I thought I was sharing the screen already. One moment.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, but your screen is not shared.
My screen is not shared.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's coming up now. It's coming up. Yeah, we can see your screen now.
All right. Can you guys see my screen now?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So first, we're looking at how to manage access to enterprise application. These are the past few slides.
5,000.
The introduction,
Five.
content, and all right. Okay. So managing access to enterprise application. The Microsoft Entra comes with enterprise application that is managed and configured with by Microsoft, and also they also have the place where users or in an organization can also create their own enterprise application as well. So when it comes to assigning users and group to an application, there are two ways you could do this. You could do that either by assigning an individual assignment or a group-based assignment. Now, we all know what an application is. An application is the software that is being used by the company to perform a particular task, and so the enterprise admin, or the enterprise application rather, comes with what we call like a service principal that gives it a level of access into the tenants. So when it comes to managing access to the enterprise admin, we could either run it on an individual assignment or on a group assignment. So let's take a Salesforce application, for example. In many organizations, Salesforce is primarily used by the marketing and sales team. Often, members of the marketing team have highly privileged access to the sales force, while members of the sales team have like a limited access. So in many cases, a broad population of the information workers have restricted access to the application, and the exception of those, sorry, the exception of this rule actually complicates matters. So we know that the marketing team has like more permission, and the sales team have less permission based on the tasks that they are given in the organization. So with Microsoft Entra ID, applications like Salesforce can be pre-configured for single sign-on and automated provisioning. And once the application is configured, an administrator can take the one-time action to create and assign appropriate groups. So in the let's say your tenant has two groups, one called the marketing team and the other called the sales team. So when you create an enterprise application, this enterprise application can also have like a dynamic group where you bring in all Microsoft. That is on a group-based assignment now. When you bring in all Microsoft, all the marketing team, the marketing group, and all the sales team into Microsoft published application. First is by license assignment directly. Second is by user consent, and the third one is through the administrator consent. By having a particular license or assignment, like like an admin assignment, you could have access to the Microsoft published application. Then also, if a user is consented to an application, they can have access. And then thirdly, if an administrator is consented as well. So moving on, managing app registration in Microsoft Entra ID. So like I said, we have the enterprise application, and then we have app registration. So in the lab, I'll show you the major difference between the enterprise application, because the enterprise application shows all application that is both owned and managed by both Microsoft and then the tenant as well, the organization tenant as well. While in the app registration, it only shows the application that is created and managed by the organization. So when you register a new application in Microsoft Entra ID, a service principal is automatically created for the app. Now, I knew I asked the question that what is a service principal? It didn't make sense at first. So a service principal is the application identity in the Microsoft Entra tenant, and access to any of the resource in the tenant is restricted by the roles assigned to the service principal, which gives you control over which resource can be accessed at which level. So now what that means is that when you create an enterprise application, a service principal is automatically created with it, and there are times that the application might need a particular level of access in the tenant, like for example, to have access to the list of users in the organization that is through the Microsoft Graph. So based on the role that we assign to the service principal of the application, that is how much access that the application will have to access resource in the tenant. I hope that is clear. If you understand, just say yes, I do. But just comment it out that I understand. So the service principal is just like an identity. Now, for example, our user in the tenant is also an identity as well. Our groups is also an identity. So service principal too is created with the application, and is an identity that is used by the enterprise application to have a level of access to resource in your Microsoft tenant, in your Microsoft account. So instead of creating a service principal in this scenario, we could also consider using managed identity for Azure resource for your application identity as well. So now, what are the prerequisites to actually have for you to be able to register an application? First, you need all you need is a Microsoft account, a Microsoft Entra account, and you can create it in this website, https://azure.microsoft.com/free, and you can get your Microsoft Entra account. Then what permission is required? The application.readwrite does all permission is required for you to be able to manage or create an application in the Microsoft Entra ID. So the service principal is an identity, right? Just like you have your user in the Microsoft tenant, that is your email in the tenant. So your user is also an identity. Now, service principal is the identity created for applications, for enterprise application in your organization. So you can't call those application users, because they are not users. They are like their application. So the name for the identity is called service principal. And service principal is created, it's like an ID that is created with the enterprise the enterprise application. And so that service principal identity now for the application is what the application uses to have access to resources in your Microsoft Entra tenant. So this service principal is an identity, and apps, if an app wants to have access to your tenant, it needs like an API, or like it needs to connect to the service principal and then um, have a level of access to resource in the tenant. So manage out now. How do we manage appreciation in the Microsoft Entra ID? So this is continuation. Um, so we have three different authentication options when it comes to service principal. Now, these options are given in the Microsoft Entra um, Admin Center for managing the application. So you could either use, which is option one, you could either upload a trusted certificate that is issued by a certificate authority. Option two is creating and uploading a self-signed certificate. And option three, which is like the most popular, is creating a new client secret. So that is, if you don't use certificate, you would just go for the third option by creating a client secret. And so when you actually register an application, or when you create an application and that need access into the Microsoft Entra tenant, you always just need to to serve the application is something like your client ID and then the client secret that is generated in option 3, and the application should have like an authorization into your tenants to maybe um, get access to storage account or get access to keywords, and based on what you pre-configure for the application. Now, you might need to configure extra permission on resources that your application needs access to. For example, you must also update a key vault access policy to give your application access to the key, secret, or certificate. So if you want your application to have access to key vaults, for example, you might need to update, you might need to go to the key vault settings and update its access policy to give your application access to the secret, sorry, to the key, secret, or certificate that is being used. So that is when it comes to extra permission in key vault scenario. Now, we'll look at configuring app registration permission scope. I believe this presentation will be justified more when it comes to the practical class or the practical scenario. But I'll just try my best to explain this as much as I can. Now, how do we configure app registration permission scopes? So by registering your web application, your web API, and exposing it through scope, assigning an owner and app role, you can provide permission-based access to its resource to authorize user and client app that access your API. Now I don't think we all know what an API is. For example, when I wasn't much comfortable about this building of application and stuff, when I hear of API, I was confused. So API means application, um, is a programmable interface, and it is like a token that gives like a client access to a particular server, right? So when you expose your API through the scope, you basically create like an API that can be used to have access to resource through based on the permission that the application have to um to the tenant, right? So how do we register a web API? So you just access your tenant, and then when you create an application, you should see a place to expose the API, and then once you expose the API, you can now work with the API. So registering web API, access to APIs requires configuration of access scope and role. If you want to expose your resource application web API to client application, you need to configure access scopes and the role for the API. And if you want a client application to access a web API, you need to configure permission to access the API in the app registration. So when we get to the lab, we would understand this better. So next, how do you manage app registration permission consent? Now, what is the permission consent? Is just like um how do I put this? The application needs access to a particular resource in your tenant, right? So, and when you give it um access to those resources, you need to grant like a consent for the application to be able to have access to the resource, like primarily. So to visualize this, I believe we can all see the picture by the right. So now there are two types of consents. There is the delegated access, and then there is the app only access. For the delegated access, a user has probably a user signed into a client application. The client application accesses the resource on behalf of the user, and delegated access requires delegated permission. So that means that both the client and the user must be authorized separately to make requests. So even though an application have access to a resource, the user that is using the application, if it does not have access to that particular resource, then he won't be able to use like grants that can get access to the only access only access um, the application on its own with no users in and backup. And it is appropriate user sign in or when the data required can't be scoped to its user. So the application only access is when the app is acting on its own. It does not act with the user, while the delegated access is when the app is getting access on behalf of the user. So on the left to the data at resource, but for the app only, um, the app only have and that it's required. Now, let's just make a small comparison of the delegated and app only access permission. So when it comes to the delegated permission, could use for the single page app, or when it comes to application permission, Delegated permission is when permission does not require user to have access to have like an access to a permission or a resource. Then in terms of content, the delegated permission where the app permission get access without a user. In terms of who can consent, data admin, so user can consent while only admin consent for the data. In permission, only the application needs required the application permission. We have the app rules, the app only. So we need to understand which is what is pre-authorization. That was a typo. So the consent is one way that the application granted permission through it. So application granted permission to a particular resource through a consent, and consent is a process where users and admin authorize an application to access a protected resource. For example, when a user attempts to sign into an application for the first time, the application can request permission to see the user profile and read the content of the user.
Hello?
So that we want to have.
Yeah, good evening.
Hello,
Your voice is breaking, but I guess it's network fluctuation.
Okay. Let's see.
Okay.
1 moment.
It's great. It's great now.
Okay, 1 moment.
Hello? It's still breaking. But I suspect it's network fluctuation.
Situation.
Okay.
Okay, I'm gonna stop sharing for 2 minutes while I change my network.
Okay. Thank you.
No problem. Apologies for the network interruption. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear
Yes,
you.
I can hear you.
Yeah, you can share your screen and continue. Thank you.
Okay, this is going to be better. All right.
Hello, if you are speaking, you are muted. Okay, so we want to apologize to everyone for the network fluctuation. So if you can hear me, can you use a reaction sign?
Sure, we can hear you, boss.
Okay, thank you. So we'll be back. So meanwhile, while we wait for Mr. Steve, I guess he's back.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. I can hear you. You can share
All
your
right.
screen, sir.
We
All
can
right,
hear
I'm
you
sharing
now.
it now. So can you guys hear me?
Yes, I can hear you and I can see your screen. Yeah, yeah, you can go ahead.
There was a little bit of delay. Okay. All right. So what is the concept consent, then a user consent, admin consent, and then pre-authorization, because these are something that we might see. So a consent is a process where users or admin authorize an application to access a protected resource in the tenant. So for example, when a user attempts to sign into an application for the first time, the application can request permission to see the user's profile and read the content of the user mailbox. So now that is a consent when a user consent when a user attempts to sign into an application. So the user provides their sign-in credential, and these credentials are checked to determine whether consent has already been granted, and if there is no previous record of user or admin consent for the required permission, the user is shown a consent prompt and asked to grant the application the requested permission. So a user consent is when the user is granting an application the particular consent after signing in to the application.
Hello, please bear with us. We'll be back. We're just having some network issues. So we'll be back. So if you have any question, this is a good time to drop the questions on the chat so that we can answer them. Of course, we know we're having network issues here, and will be so. If you have any question, kindly drop your question on the chat so we can just take the questions while we wait for our speaker to join the class. Okay. So you could just share your question, please. Okay, you can talk. Yeah, go ahead. I see your hands is raised. Okay.
All right. Hello, guys.
Yeah,
Thank you for this session. It's my pleasure. So, having understood that the topic here is managing applications access using Entra ID. So, my understanding is applications like, including mobile applications, web applications, desktop applications. So let's say, for instance, I as a newbie, like maybe I'm just starting out in cloud, or security or cloud security, field, and I want to go deeper, like having to maybe deploy applications, manage application access, just like this topic is saying. Do I need to know or be able to write codes, maybe a software developer have developed the applications in PHP and I needed to, you know, manage it some sort of in Entra ID. I'm not just asking this for myself, but also for others that might find it useful. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much for that question. That's a wonderful question. So let me just answer that question with a scenario. So last week, I work in Hashem. So our application team reached out to me that they want to use my Entra ID account to actually test their application. So the first thing that came to my mind was,
Quick one.
what do they want to do? Hello? Are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Apologies. When you say your application team, what do you mean?
The developers in my organization, those
Good,
that
thank
build
you.
application. So they reached out to
Yes,
me
good.
that
Thank you.
they would like to use my Entra ID environment to test the application. So I was wondering what they want to do. So what we did was, they have already built the application. It's actually an HR management application. So what they want is that they want users to be able to sign into that application using single sign-on with their identity that they have in my tenant. So what I did, I created users in my tenant. Then we went to enterprise application. We created an application for them. Then after creating the application, like Steven was explaining, you copy the client ID, you copy the secret, you copy those things. So the client ID and the secret, that's what I give to the developers. So they put those codes, those client ID and the secret on their code that they are writing from their end.
Okay.
So as soon as they put it, then they try to sign in with one of the users I created for them. They were getting an error. Then the error they were getting was admin consent not granted. Then I now went to where I gave them read permission, just like Steve was explaining. Then I now granted admin consent. As soon as I granted admin consent, so the user, because the application is in my environment and there is a communication between the code and my tenant. So
API.
users in my environment can sign into the application using single sign-on because the application exists in my tenant. So that's just how it interacts. You don't need to be a developer to create enterprise application. You work with the developers team in your organization. Once they are done creating the application, and they want
Mhm.
users to sign into the application using single sign-on. Then
Mhm.
you will now use that. You will now have to create that same application in the enterprise application so that any of them can log in to the application with their credential instead of
Okay.
you doing all that credentials. So it will just be single sign-on.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. That really explains it. So
Yeah, you're welcome.
just to maybe kind of add to it is if they are signed into maybe their Office 365 on the web and then they want to access that enterprise application, that application your developer, that HR application, and they click on it and it opens in another tab and automatically it's going to sign in because they are signed in with that particular account on the
Yeah,
Office 365. Correct, right?
yeah, you're correct. So,
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Mr. Emmanuel has his hands raised, so you can go ahead, sir.
Yeah, good evening, everyone, and apologies for the network of our speaker today. So just to add to what Mani has already said, right? So that's actually very correct. So with Entra ID, right, there are two parts of it. First of all, you don't need to be a developer. You don't need to be like a coder, right, to use Entra ID as application access, right? So there are two parts to it. There is the app registration and there is the enterprise application that Emmanuel said. So in a situation whereby let me give you another scenario too. Our developers are developing an application on-prem, right? And those applications, since it's on our data center on-prem, they want to be able to use single sign-on, like Emmanuel said, to access such applications. So in that scenario, what we're doing there is to create the application as an app registration, then grant the necessary permissions. If it is a user or if it's a particular group that needs to have access to the applications, we'll do that. Then for the enterprise application part, so this is mostly common when you have third-party SaaS applications. Like a lot of organizations, they use, apart from using the Microsoft applications, they use a lot of other third-party application. An example is an Atlassian application, like using the Jira, Confluence products, right? So those ones, you just had them as an enterprise applications. So every of the permissions that needed to be granted will be stated from the vendor that is providing the applications. From there, you grant the applications and users will be able to use the same credentials instead of having different credentials to sign into the same application. So with SSO, they're able to use the same credential that they are currently using to log into their system, to access their emails or whatever. With that same credential, they'll be able to use it to log into the application. So that's the idea of application access generally. Thank you.
Lovely. Thank you. Well, quick one, guy man. You how do they is it the cloud engineers or cloud security engineer that would deploy it, or is it the developers that would deploy it to Azure platform, the application, I mean?
So as a sysadmin, so whether you call it a cloud engineer or a cloud developers, right? So depending is the person that have access to the Entra ID. Let me give an example. With my previous organization, InterSwitch, before now, we granted our developers app developers role, right? So that they'll be able to have the application on their own. But our risk team flagged it. Our InfoSec team, they flagged that no, that anything that should be done on Azure based on, because InterSwitch as an organization is in a highly regulated industry. So they check everything. So at that point, what we needed to do, we needed to remove all our developers, remove that role, app developer role from the accounts. So it comes through the sysadmin, my team. So if any developer needs to add an application, so what we just need to do, we work with the developer. If the developer has a documentation already, so all we just need to do, follow the documentation and help them to have the application, be it an app registration or an enterprise applications, then grant the application the necessary consent, right? Then so it depends on the industry. But with the app developer role, they would be able to add the application, but they will still need the global admin role to grant that admin consent. That's the thing. So instead of going through that two ways, so they just restrict. Instead of giving developers, app developers on Azure, let the global admin do the stuff and be done once and for all. Yeah.
Wait, 1 second. So the whole script, like the whole code base, the engineers would be the ones to deploy them, right?
So yeah, I think you're missing it, right?
I mean, they mix it.
I think you're missing it. They will have done all their coding or the application itself. The application is ready. Where we are coming in here is just to be able to allow users, let's say the users that are using the applications are internal users. Let's say for a particular department, let's say the application that was deployed, for example, is an HR application, for example, now. Definitely the users from
Yes.
the HR department will need to be able to sign into the applications. So they will have done
Yes.
everything they need to do on the application, the developers.
Okay,
So,
okay.
we'll have done everything. Where we are coming in is to help them add the application to Azure, either as an enterprise application or an app registration. Then once that is done, we grant the app the necessary consents, right? Once after doing that, then all the users, or maybe they already have a set of users, or they already created a group for the users that should have access to it. We just grant the group access to the application. So that means it's only those users in that group that will be able to access the applications. For example, the HR application. So users from the HR department that needs to use the applications. Of course, you have to follow the principle of least preference access, right? So it's only users that need access to it that will be granted access and they'll be able to access the applications.
Yeah.
So I was asking
Thank
that
you.
during the demo, yeah, Michael, Stephen will do demo. You'll be able to see some of these things from
Thank
the
you.
demo. Yeah.
Sure. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I think one person's hand is raised. That's Akim. Akim, can you just ask your question?
Yeah, thank you so much. I want to be sure you can hear me. Hello?
Yes, I can hear you. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Good. Thank you so much. Well done, guys. Slightly new here. So now I have this scenario in my organization presently that I'm handling, where the organization use Exchange predominantly to manage their email activities, and so now we have two guys who are directors who are using Apple Mail app. That is, their devices are Mac devices, and they're using Mac OS. So the default Apple Mail app on their Mac devices is having serious issue syncing with Exchange. Precisely this active sync issue. So the workaround I've been giving to them has always been each time they have issue, we'll remove their profile, then they will re-add it back. So via SMTP, and they will be able to work again. And subsequently, once there's any slight glitch on the network, the issue resurfaces again. So just 2 weeks ago, one of our guys suggested that we go to the Microsoft Entra ID and try to give this same permission as explained today to Apple Mail, the default mail app on the Apple from that from the Microsoft Entra, and make sure that the permission is given to that particular app, so that is expecting that to resolve the issue. Then I'm of the opinion that I don't know, because what I've seen before is we have the basic authentication method that is being used by Apple default mail app from the Apple side, finding it difficult to sync well with the modern authentication method that Microsoft is using. So that has always been the issue. Then the workaround is what I have given. But now it's suggested that if we go to the Microsoft Entra ID and give permission to that mail app, possibly is going to resolve the issue. Then I'm reluctant. We've communicated to the director, but we're talking about the director here. I don't want to sound stupid, being sure, and now implement a resolution that is not sure. because we've made him to understand that this is a product limitation, and from Microsoft side, we might not be able to do more than we've done. So, but when he is a colleague, I don't want to sound like, okay, I'm rushing that. But I'm asking in this forum if it's something anybody has experienced, if the granting of permission from the Microsoft Entra ID, Microsoft Entra could resolve the issue. That's giving the permission to that particular app will resolve the issue. Thank you.
Okay, that's a long one, a very long question. So Mr. Emmanuel, please, can you help us?
Yeah, sure. So I'm not sure that is actually related, Akim, right? So when we talk about you're making mention of Apple Mail, talking about Apple Mail application itself, right? So there is no, it's not really like a kind of an enterprise application, so to say, because it's more or less like let me say before we start Microsoft Mail app before it was merged with Outlook, right? So it's peculiar to Microsoft, right? So this is not really talking more about emails applications, right? It's talking about enterprise applications and applications you build for a particular service, right? Not really directly with mail, but we can actually take it outside the core because it's actually out of scope for what we're discussing. Because if the Apple email can be linked to Microsoft Entra ID, definitely, right? If you check Microsoft Apple documentation, they will provide something that will link that will actually you'll be able to use to link it to the Entra ID. But if you're not seeing something like that, so I don't think it's possible. You can take it outside the call so that Stephen can go ahead with the session and be able to discuss further after the session. Stephen can go ahead.
Thank you so much. I appreciate this. Thanks a lot.
All right, please, can you hear me now?
Yeah, loud and clear.
All right. Okay. So, creating and managing app in the Entra ID. So I'm currently in the Microsoft Entra Admin Center. I could also use the Microsoft Azure portal to also do this as well. Well, the Entra Admin Center so when it comes to managing, we can see that we have enterprise application and the app registration. We see the third-party application and our organization application as well. So currently the filter is on application type is equals to enterprise app. So if we remove the filter from the screen, you should be able to see about 664 applications found, both the Microsoft managed application and some third-party application. So if we scroll down, we can see that there are a lot of applications that we could use in the tenant, right? So, but for our tenants, if we check the app registration, we should be able to see the I think this should be network issue. Should be network issue. So, but we can also see the list if we keep the filter on. So we can see that there are just 11 applications. Now, when it comes to registering an application, we come to app registration. Okay, so if you check the all application, we should be able to see the list of applications. There are 14 applications, right? A new registration developers as the for the application. Let's see application for. Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. I can hear you.
Kind of
I guess
bad.
the national grid, because that grid it has been falling.
Honestly, I guess so as well because it is affecting the signal. All right. So we know what a single tenant is. That
I don't know. It's like you stop sharing your screen.
The screen is on, but the network is just terrible.
The class is going on. I can't hear anything from this end.
Yeah. So we're having a bit of network issues. Just
Simply, I can't say
give
no.
us.
network
Okay.
is.
I can hear you now. So you can just go ahead and share your screen.
All right. Okay. Can you see? Can you know?
Yeah, I can hear you. Your screen. I guess you need to share it again. It's not
All right.
showing.
Okay. So let me share. It's okay. Block. This for. Is my screen live?
Not yet,
Not
but
yet.
it's as if
Not
you want
yet.
to share. As if you want to share.
You can't see your screen yet.
No. Is the screen live now?
Yes, life is life. But please,
Is
can
live?
you start?
Okay.
Can you start again?
Sure,
Yeah, your
sure, no
voice is
problem.
audible. Your voice is audible, sir.
All right, sure, no problem. So I mentioned the part of this enterprise application we remove the filter here, we should see all Microsoft managed and some third-party application, by Microsoft that we could, try out. But yeah, so but when we want to create an application, should come
So we especially apologize for the delay in network and network issues.
Yeah, I can't hear.
Yeah. Mr. Emmanuel, please, are you on the call? Hello, Mr. Emmanuel. Okay.
The network is poor. In fact, I'm surprised. Both my Starlink and the Spectrum nets, they are both poor today. Oh,
Okay.
I don't know if you could share your screen, if that's possible.
Okay.
Maybe I could speak from your screen. So I
Okay.
don't.
Okay, 1 second.
All right, thank you. So, did you get it from the beginning, or even from the beginning of the presentation? It wasn't clear. Oh wow. Apologies for the network interruption. It is unexpected on my end, and I would ensure it doesn't take place next time. Okay. Let me try my screen my screen again. Okay. All right, I believe you guys can see the screen.
Yes, we can see the screen.
Okay, so Mr. Emmanuel, please just help me with to enter Entra ID, Microsoft Entra ID. Okay.
Can you request for control of my screen? Because
All right, I can.
I have a classroom meeting. I need to join on my phone.
Okay, let me request for control. I'm not seeing request control. I'm not seeing
Okay.
request control.
All right, just go ahead. Go ahead. Let me.
Okay. So under the Manage tab, you should be able to see app registration, and so here we can create a new app. So help me click on new registration. Okay, so we can give like a demo name for this application. Now we can create an application for different account type. We can create it for single tenant, for multi-tenant, and also for personal account as well. So for the single tenant, the application would only be available in your tenant. So people from other tenants won't be able to have access to the application, except if there's like a B2B collaboration and you invite other tenants into your tenants, then that's when they will have access to the application in the single tenant. But without that, only those that is in the tenant would have access to the application. So while the multi-tenant is that the application will be available for the different tenants, and they'll be able to use the application. So for this demo, we'll be making use of the single tenant. Then if you scroll down, you should see a redirect URI. So this redirect URI is optional, but it says that we'll return the authentication response to this URI after successfully authenticating the user. So once the user is authenticated, it takes the user to this URI. So we're not going to configure a redirect URI. Instead, we just click on register. Okay. So the application is registered, and we can see that we are currently in the demo application. And from the overview, we can see the display name, which is the demo app. We can see the application ID, or what we call the client ID, that is used for authorization. Then we can see the directory ID or tenant ID. And then on the right-hand side, we can see client credential, direct URI, application ID URI, then the manage application and local directory. So this is just the overview page and of the whole of this application. Now, when it now comes to managing it, on the left hand side, we can see the manage button. So once we click on it, we have the different settings that we can actually do on it. Now, when it comes to branding and properties, on the branding and properties, we can customize the application for the organization. We can customize it. You can put in a logo for the application, then a terms of service URL, a privacy statement URL if needed. So this is just the customizable option for the application. Then let's go to the authentication tab. Now in the authentication tab, we can see that we can later on change the application to a multi-tenant if needed be, but we can't change to a personal authentication. But we're still going to leave it as a single tenant. So please can you scroll down a little? Okay, so for the advanced setting, we can see the allow public client flow. So enabling it allows the app to collect plain text password, no keyboard, and SSO for domain joined Windows, right? So now can we go to the certificates and secrets? Now this certificate and secret, just like Mr. Emmanuel said, Mr. Oyimafu Emmanuel said that when the developer needs authorization, they request for the client ID and client secret. So we need to create like a secret for app access to the to resources. So just give like a description, like a demo description, and then this shows us the recommended time that the secret expires. So 6 months is the ideal, but we can choose to say, okay, after 90 days, we want the secrets to be renewed, and so that we can change secrets every 90 days. So we have custom days there, but the recommended is the 6 months, which is the 180 days. So we're going to leave that as it is, and then we're going to add the secret. So please, can you add the secret? All right. So once we have the secret, we should see the secret value. The secret value is very important, and it only shows this once. Once we leave this page and then come back, we won't have access to the secret value. So it is important that we store the secret value in those parts so that we can enable authorization for the application that is being developed to the Entra ID. So then so on the left we can see certificates, right? So this certificate means that if we have like a certificate from a certificate authority, then we can import that certificate authority, the certificate itself, and then also use certificate to authenticate the user. Then also we can also create like a self-signed certificate as well. If we don't have like certificate from an authority, we could create like a self-signed certificate and also upload still on the certificate and then upload it to this certificates page so that we can work based on certificates. We can authorize based on certificates. Now on the right hand, we should see federated credential. Now this federated credential is it allows other identity to impersonate the application that is from different sides. Like for example, the GitHub workflow. The GitHub workflow can request authorization. Sorry, the GitHub workflow, yeah, it can request authorization to the Microsoft Entra ID. So this is where we configure like a federated identity to through the application to the Entra ID. So we won't be creating this. You can press cancel. All right, so now let's go to token configuration. So these are optional claims that are used to configure additional information. But one of the tab that is important is the expose an API tab by the left. So please can you to click on the expose an API on the left. So this allows us to create the application ID API, and allows us to give permission based on the API, so that we know what this application has access to. So can you help me to click on add for the application ID URI? Just need to click on add up the first one. Okay. Please let me cancel this first. Then if you scroll up, you should see application ID URI. Just click on add. Then we're going to save this. This is the default API for the application. So we'll save this. And now in the scope, we'll save this. So in the scope, we can define the scope that the app is authorized to. Please can you save it? Sorry, please can you save it? Yes, thank you. So in the scope, we can define which scope the application has permission to the scope or the resource that the application should have permission to. So can you click on add the scope? Now the scope is usually in a format of the scope name dot the permission that we want to give it. So I'm going to give you like a template to use for permission scope. All right, in the scope name, just put in employee records, for example, employee space records. That's the scope name. Sorry, employee.read.all rather, employee.read.all. Employee.read.all. So you can remove the record. So this scope means that that the app can read all employee in the organization. Now, who can consent to this scope? We're going to choose the admin and users that can consent to this scope. Then admin consent display name should be read-only access. Read-only access. Then we cannot put in any description there. We can put in any description. Then same as the user consent display name, read-only access, any description as well. The description too can be left. Now, can we click on add scope? So this add a scope that we can read employee, and sorry, we can read employee all, like all employee in the tenants. Now let's create another scope. Let's add a new scope as well. Now this scope is going to be employees.write.all. Employees.write.all. So we want it that only the admin should be able to write, only admin should be able to write to this scope. Then in the name, admin content display name, we could put write access to employee or anything, admin write access. So same as the description can be any description, but in a corporate organization, the description should be well placed so that anyone managing it would know what the scope is used for. Now we can add scope. So yeah, on the screen we can verify the exposed scope, and so now we can see that these are the scope that have been exposed, and so that means for the first scope is that both users and admin can read employees in the organization, while the second scope is that's for the application, only admin should be able to write to the employees list. So that is for exposing an API and adding scope. Now, can we go to the API permission on the left? All right. So the API permission has to do with managing what permission that the application can do. So like I said in the theory, that we have two types of application access. We have the delegated and the app only access. So the delegated means that it needs user permission, while the app only means that only the application can act without the user. So to create like a permission, like now currently there is a user.read permission which is delegated, and so that means that this app can allow the application to read users in the tenant. And if we want to add some extra permission for the app to have, we're going to click on add a permission, for example. Please can you click on add a permission, Simon? All right, so we can see some commonly used Microsoft APIs. So for this demonstration, we're going to use the Microsoft Graph. So we'll click on the Microsoft Graph. And now we can see that there is the delegated permission, and then there's the application only permission. So the delegated, like I said, needs a user consent or user permission to have access to the resource, while the application doesn't need user does not need user for it to access the resource. Now we're going to click on delegated permission. So please can you click on delegated permission? Then if we scroll down, we should be able to search for permission. let's just search for something like authorization. If there's authorization, so you scroll down. Okay, there's no authorization. Okay, let's just use, okay, can you clear the search bar and let's use any normal permission that is there so that we can see how it is used. So for example, we can see the profile. Okay. View user basic profile. Let's click on that first. Then can we scroll down and check for another permission? Yeah, can we use the admin unit as well too? The administrative unit. I want to demonstrate something also with the admin unit. Something like admin unit read all. Can you? So you can see that on the right, it requires admin consent. That is yes, you can see that it requires admin consent. So now let's add this permission. Let's add the permission. Okay, so we can see what permission that the application can have access to, and so the app can read the user and can also view user basic profile. But when it comes to reading admin unit, you can see that it says not granted for invarious. Now, this requires admin consent because it is a privilege, or is a privilege permission, and so that requires admin consent for the application to have access to the admin unit. So for us to grant the consent for the application, we're going to click on grant admin consent for invarious on the top, and it asks us once again. We say yes, and it refreshes that, and the application is granted for this particular tenant to have access to this permission, right? So so that is API permission. Now, when it comes to the delegated access, because they are all delegated, Mr. Emmanuel, I will send you like a quick link to open so that we would see how this actually works for the delegated access. One moment. Please don't forget, if you have question, you can always drop it in the comment section, and once we would attend to them. Okay, Mr. Mel, can I check your okay, I'll send it to the call group so that we can see it, how it looks like. I'll send to the call chat rather, to the call chat. So can you hear me to open that link that I sent to the call chat? So I've configured the application URI and the client ID. So just log in with any admin permission. Now we can see that it is the application demo app is requesting for is requesting for permission to read admin unit and also to sign in and read user profile. Yeah, it can be done in the Entra portal as well. So yeah, so the app is requesting. Now that link that I sent contains the tenant ID and the client, which is the application ID. So once you replace it with your tenant ID and the client ID, here we can allow the admin to consent the application to have access to this required permission. So it says that this application is not published by Microsoft, it's not published by us. So it's just giving us like a note of warning. So once we click on accept down below.
Can we see what is, sorry, excuse me. Can we see what is under the read administrative unit and sign in like read user?
Okay, please let's see what's under the data. Sorry. So we can see that it says allow the app to read administrative unit and administrative unit membership on behalf of the signed in user. Right, so that is delegated permission, and this is a permission requested to access your profile, your data in this tenant in various. Now, under the sign in and the read user profile, this allows user to sign into the app and allow the app to read the profile of signed in user. It also allows the app to read basic company information of signed in users.
Okay.
So this is a permission requested to
Good.
access the data.
Yeah, and they show details below.
Yes, that's correct. That's correct. So from there, if we accept, okay, so if we accept, the app will get access to the specified resource for all users in the organization. Now, it gives us like a no reply, but we have apparently granted an admin consent for the application. So we can close this tab and return back to the Entra ID, sorry, to the Azure portal. Now that is when it comes to granting permission. So on the left hand side, let's click on owners. So let's click on owners first before we come to apples. So owners on the left hand side. Now this is where we can assign a app owner for this particular application. And so if you click on add owner, we should be able to select our user. So just let me click on add owner and put in your user as the app owner. So select. So it just gives like a app ownership to this person. So that is what the owner does. So the cloud security is about managing this, this app and its property. So we know that we don't overexpose permission. So we don't over give permission to the application. We manage what application the app uses, and in terms of secret, we ensure that that secret is well safe. Then also, can we click on the app roles as well? App roles. So the app role are custom role to assign permission to users or application, and the application defines and publishes the app roles and interprets them as permission during authorization. So can click on create app role. So this we can just give the app some rules in the organization. So we're going to put let's say writer. Then we're going to select application in the allowed member type, just application. All right, so you should be able to write to application, then value. We are going to follow the example basically, tax.write, then that as well. So this is the custom rule that we give to the application to for authorization into the resource in the tenant. So we can apply. Then let's look at the roles and administrator by the left as we round up. So we can see that this is we're in the administrative role. So administrative role are used for granting access for privileged action in the Microsoft Entra ID, and Microsoft recommend using the built-in rule for delegating access to manage broad application configuration permission without granting access to manage other part of Microsoft Entra ID not related to application configuration. And so the assignable roles are roles that can be assigned here to allow managing this resource. So we can see that, that there is a cloud application admin role, which allows us to create and manage all aspects of app registration and enterprise application, especially app proxy. So this is the built-in role that is in the roles and admin tab. All right, so Now, lastly, can we click on the manifest button? So this is if we have like a template, like a Microsoft Graph manifest template that we want to import to the or used to like manage the Microsoft Graph on what access can be granted and at each point in time. So if you are used to the manifest, you could just play around with it and see how you can manage authorization from this Microsoft Graph app manifest. So that is it about managing enterprise application in the Microsoft Entra. And thank you guys for joining in today.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Steve. This is a great section. I've really learned a lot, and I know everyone on this call have learned a lot. And that's to justify the question, what someone sees, what is expectation, that you want to gain understanding. And our cyber preacher has been able to preach and giving us understanding of everything we need to know. Thank you, our MVP, Emmanuel Itoje. He came to our rescue. Thank you, sir, for being here. So if you have any question for our facilitator, you could just raise your hands up and ask your question, because we'll soon be rounding up the section right now. So if you have any question, please just raise your hand, or you could just drop it on the chat. Let me check the chat if there's any question on the chat. Okay, somebody is saying that, can we get the slide for this class? Mr. Steve, can you share your slide? Is there any compliance?
No problem, no problem. So that is
okay.
No problem.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you, sir. So does anybody have any question before we give your time back to you guys, so you guys can just go and do other things for the weekend? Okay, since there's no questions, somebody said that this also can be done on Entra ID portal, right? So I think the answer is yes, but Steve, I
Yes,
believe you can still more light.
Yeah, primarily it can be done in the Entra Admin Center, and also can also be done in the when it comes to giving or managing service principal roles. We make use of the Azure the Azure portal, so that we can give the application service principal like a subscription level access or a resource group level access into the to have permission at the resource level, sorry, at the resource group level or the subscription level. But when it comes to managing the application and management, the Azure portal and Entra Admin Center. So the thing that comes to the Azure portal is just when it comes to giving identity and access management to this service principal of the application. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Michael, I can see your hands is raised. Please, would you mind to unmute your mic and just ask your question?
Okay, thank you, Emmanuel. Thank you, Steve. Please, I want to really confirm the link that's
thank you.
The link that you shared in the chat, the chat side. I want to confirm, is it the link to the enterprise application? But I tried clicking and it's directing me to Teams, so I don't know if it's from my end or so.
Oh, sorry, the link is to consent an application to a partner information. So if you create like a application, online.com /admin consent is equals to client ID. So that client ID
I can't hear you
your
from the start.
Oh, sorry. I said that if you notice the link, this link is used for consenting an application to the permissions given. Just consent that okay, this application can use the given permission using a particular like admin, so the admin can consent the application. So if you notice the link, it says login.online.com. And after the slash, you can see an ID. That ID there is my tenant ID. So when you want to consent your own application, you have to change that ID to your tenant ID. So I can send like a draft. Okay, let me just send the draft template that shows what the link actually does in the first place. So if you check the chat section now, this is how it looks like. So you would replace the tenant ID with your tenant ID, and then you replace the client ID with your client ID to consent that your application should have access to.
Okay. Mike, okay, thank you.
Yeah.
So I want to
Okay,
use this opportunity to say Happy International Women's Day to all the women in the house. And also, thank you, Theodora, for asking this question. So she's like, what is the use case of this application? I don't really get. So please, Mr. Steve, Theodora wants us to throw more light on the use case of the application. She don't really understand.
Okay. Emmanuel, I would really appreciate if you can do the whole breakdown about the use case of the application, if you don't mind.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. So the application now, like Steve created on the demo section. So basically, that application ideally is used to it can be used for a lot of things, like Emmanuel Itoje explained, for giving access to users to SaaS applications that you want them to use in your organization. Example of SaaS application could be HR applications, could be Salesforce, could be different application. For users to have access to that, to be able to log into the application using their credentials in your tenant, that application needs to be created in your environment as an enterprise application. Users will not be given rights, just like the way rights was given to the application to users in the demo. Users will be given rights so that if they want to sign into the application, they can sign in with their credentials in your tenant to log into the application. So the one we did is just a demo app, but in a production environment, normally you know the name of the application. If the application is, let's say, building application, or let's say account application, so we know that it's the accounting departmental unit that needs access to the application. All we just need to do is to assign the permission to either a group, or we select all the users in accounting department so that they will have access to the application and sign into it using their credential. So I don't know if Steve, you want to add anything to it.
I think if you said most of it. So the application is used to grant access, to the application, and also to users that are using the application. So I'll just say that is just like the major thing that you said. So does that answer your question, Theodora?
Maybe she can't talk where she is, but there's a last question on the chat.
Okay.
So the question is creating application for users to have access simultaneous to conditional access? Yeah, I think the person is trying to say, okay, is creating application access for users just the same thing as conditional access policy? Please kindly help us answer that question, sir.
Okay. Thank you so much. So conditional access is has to do with I mean, when it comes to conditional access, we can also use conditional access for users when want some particular set of users to have access an application. You can give an application some specific permissions, or that it can use, and also like it can give it able to group. So, but it is not really synonymous to conditional access. Conditional access is general like access to the groups as well. So I can't say it is synonymous, but in a way they relate, but I can't really say it is synonymous. Mr. Emmanuel, if you have like more light on this, you can also add to it so that we could have a better understanding.
Okay, I believe you have said most of it, and you have said it all actually. So application for users is, yeah, you have said it all. You have said it all. So there's another question again on the chat from Michael. He say, can you please show us again where to assign application to users or group? Probably maybe we'll drop a chat. Maybe we'll drop a link rather to the steps. Or Steve, can you just share your screen to show them that?
Okay. I mean, I don't know how good my network would carry it.
Network. Okay.
Yes,
Or better still, maybe you can just upload the video on your YouTube channel so that they can go and
then
subscribe to your YouTube channel.
I'll share it. Don't worry.
Okay. 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 We want to, since no one has a question. So Steve, are you trying to share your screen or you
No,
upload it
no.
on your YouTube channel?
I still have a question, please. I'm just waiting for him to share his screen. But I can go ahead and ask while he's sharing.
Yeah, network is bad. Network is quite very good. So please, can you just, we're going to post it on the YouTube channel. You are going to see all the steps on the YouTube channel. Then you can also reach out to Steve. Steve, please, can you drop your LinkedIn profile?
Yeah.
So we'll connect with you.
Okay.
So he will drop his LinkedIn profile. You can always
I'll do that right.
and ask him any question relating this. And also, if you can schedule time with him, you can even go on a one-on-one call with it and he will show you. But network is very friendly today. So please bear with us. So he has dropped his LinkedIn profile, cyber preacher, like his family called. And really, it's a preacher of cybersecurity.
So interesting. Can I shoot?
So let's follow him on LinkedIn. And we thank everybody.
Can I shoot?
Can you do what?
Just want to add something.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, this is actually an interesting topic. It's a good session. Thanks to the organizers and everyone else that joined. I was looking at, is this going to be the last kind of presentation on this particular topic, or would there be some sort of more, maybe other parts of the session? Also.
Okay, like a part 2. Like a part 2 on
sort of
managing
exactly.
application access.
Yeah. But maybe the organizers can answer the question.
Okay. I think we would have to look into that if we could do a part 2 for managing application access. Probably we'll look into it. We'll look into it. Don't worry.
All right.
And we'll update all of us.
Yeah, good. Because I think there are a lot of side jobs on this particular topic. To be honest.
That's true. That's true.
All right. Sure. Thanks, guys.
All right. Mr. Emmanuel, are you with us?
Okay, thank you everybody for joining us today. So I like the contributions from everybody, and I like the fact that it's an open section and everyone has communicated, said their mind, and we have gotten feedback, which the management of the Nigerian Security User Group is going to look at, and which your feedback is actually what makes us better. So by God's grace, we'll look at it, and if we have a part 2, we'll drop it on the security group. So we'll get to know of it. So once again, let's appreciate
our cyber preacher, for the wonderful job well done. Even if the network was trying to do
I apologize. Thank you.
And let's thank Emmanuel Itoje also. He's not here, but at least he really helped us during the section. So
yeah, we really appreciate it.
So we'll be ending the section now. So thank you everyone for joining. We appreciate you. Goodbye. Have a nice weekend.
Thank you, sir.
So thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you everyone. Good night. Bye-bye.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.